Physician referrals aren't dead, but the strategy is. So if your physician referral strategy looks like this, where you're showing up unannounced, you're dropping off cookies or maybe some lunch, or you're doing one of those lunch and learns, right? Hoping to be remembered by, you are literally doing what you hate when people do it to you, right? So I want you to think about it for a second. Imagine like a random rep walks into your clinic. They have no appointment. They're asking to meet the owner. What do? Right? You start to hide. You start to tell your staff like, I'm not here, right? You literally turn into the most avoidant version of yourself. Yet, that's exactly how most PTs are marketing to physicians. Now, imagine a different world, right? Imagine where they called ahead. They ask what time works for you. They show up prepared. They actually bring you something of use and value. That's the person that you don't want to just meet with. That's the person that you actually want to work with. So we need to stop doing to physicians what you hate people doing to you. If we haven't met, I'm Dr. Robbie Woelkers, physical therapist, co-owner here at Rehab CEOs. And I've scaled 3 physical therapy clinics in under 18 months, sold my 50% shares back to my partner in 2021, and then stuck under a 5-year non-compete, I built a 8-figure agency helping physical therapists grow and scale. Now, I've watched clinics play the cookie cutter drop-in game and stay invisible. And I've watched clinics flip the script, lead with value and reciprocity, and become the obvious referral choice. In this video, I'm going to give you 3 things. Number 1 is why the drop-in with food and ask for a referral play is broken. Number 2 is a simple reciprocity-based strategy that's going to actually flip the power dynamic. And number 3 is I'm going to give you the exact script to use so that you could start showing up more like a giver versus a taker. And at the end, if you want to build this into a full referral system, I will invite you to our Physician Referral Workshop. Okay, so let's break this down and look at these 2 columns. So over here on the left side, like what do PTs do to docs, right? They're just going to show up, right? They're just going to show up unannounced. So that's number 1. And then what they're going to do is they are going to bring some food, and they're going to bring some brochures, right? And then they're going to ask doctors like, hey, can you send us patients, right? So they're going to say, can you send us patients, right? So that is what PTs are going to do to docs. So number 1 is they're going to just show up unannounced. Number 2 is they're going to bring some kind of food. And then the ask here is going to be like, can you bring us some patients, right? That is the ultimate goal for most physician marketing. Now, over on the right-hand side, what reps do to you is kind of interesting because guess what? They're also going to show up unannounced, right? They are also going to drop off some food, right? And then they are also going to figure out like, hey, can I talk to owner so we can get your business, right? They want you to get some kind of business from you so that you could buy their thing. Like that is their ultimate goal here, right? So let's look at this, right? And, you know, I brought this up because I want to kind of compare these 2 before we move on is that like, look at this, right? You hate being ambushed in your own clinic, but that's exactly what we're doing to physicians. They are slammed. They are overstaffed. And here we come mid-clinic with food and a brochure and a subtle, can you send us patients, right? They don't see collaborator in that messaging. What they do is they see another vendor, and because every other PT in town is doing the same version of this, you get commoditized into the cookie crowd. Okay, so now here's the move that almost no one is using, and it's called call, solve, and send. Okay, so when we look at this, we want to make sure we're leveraging 3 things. We're going to leverage number 1 is going to be respect, number 2 is going to be research, and number 3 is going to be reciprocity. So step number 1 is going to be calling ahead, right? So instead of dropping in like a rep, which most people do, right? You're going to drop in, right? Or you're going to call ahead first. And you're going to say, hey, this is Dr. Robbie with insert clinic name. I know you're busy, right? And I don't want to interrupt your clinic time. Is there a better time this week for me to swing by maybe for like 10 minutes to talk to whoever handles referrals? I have a few patients that would love to send your way, right? And why this matters is because you just separated yourself from like 90% of everyone else. You respected their time and you provided value. Right? So now when you actually show up, you're going to show up to find problems, right? You're not there to pitch, right? You're going to put your research hat on. So when you get there, the frame is going to be this, right? It's just I know you get hit up all the time by clinics asking to send patients their way. So I'm not here to do that today. I'm trying to build a long-term relationship with a small number of offices, and I want to understand, what do you enjoy about the current PT clinics that you refer to, but also what would you change or wish they did differently, right? What would you change? What would you improve? And then you just zip your lip, you just shut up and let them speak, because they are going to tell you all the things, right? All of their pain points, all of their problems that they have with other clinics, right? Well, they're slow to schedule. They can't get our patients in quick enough, right? We play a phone tag or referral tag, right? Patients are kind of confused for whatever reason. There's some insurance chaos, right? That intel, right? You can actually go home and start working on and fix, right? And number three, right? Number three, step three is going to be, you want to lead with reciprocity, right? You don't want to be a taker, you want to be a giver, right? So now, instead of just like, hey, so will you send us some people, right? You say, hey, this has been super helpful, right? We see a lot of patients who need a good PCP, or they need a good ortho, whatever they are. I would actually love to start by sending you more of our patients, right? Can I grab some of your cards or materials? So when I actually have someone that needs what you do, I could confidently send them here, right? Now you're not another person pulling on them. You're a provider trying to solve their problems and send them business, right? That is completely different energy, okay? So just to recap here, right? This is call, solve, send. You want to show up with respect. You want to then be able to do some research into what problems they're currently having with the people they refer to. And then you want to reciprocate. So when someone brings you a warm referral, right, they help a patient or they actually send you business, you naturally start to think, like, who is this person? Right? And how can I help them? How can I pay them back? And should I meet with them? Right? Physicians and their staff are the exact same. So if you make their workflows easier, right, you start to reduce headaches and you start to send them their ideal patients, you're going to start to trigger some level of reciprocity, right? So the goal here is that you are going to start to send them people. They are going to start to win. And then they start to lean in and they ask, right? They ask more about your clinic. They invite you to meet with their physicians, right? They start paying attention when your name comes across their desk. And ultimately, what's going to happen is you win, right? You didn't have to beg. You just behaved like the kind of partner you'd want someone to be with you, right? And then all of a sudden, you are going to send again. They're going to win some more. They start to lean in and you keep winning. And this is the cycle that is going to happen once you start to build your physician referral strategy. Okay, now I know some of you guys are thinking, specifically some of my more tactical listeners, that you're like, this sounds great, but give me the exact script for the first visit, because I called, I set things up. I'm going to go to the office, but what do I say? So here's a word for word template, right? Just make sure you adjust it to sound like you, because, I want you to keep the structure, but just kind of tweak it. So the first thing is the intro, right? Anytime I meet somebody, I always want to have respect, but I also want to have like some kind of pattern interrupt, right? So, hey, I'm Dr. Robbie with XYZ Clinic. I appreciate you finding the time for me today. I know that you constantly get hit up for people wanting more referrals, so I'm not here to ask you to send me patients today. That's it, right? You're going to pause. You're going to let that marinate. You're going to let them relax, because once they hear this pattern interrupt, they're going to be like, oh, this is different, right? Hey, I'm not here today to get referrals, so just relax, right? And then we're going to be able to go into like what this actually is. So, hey, what this is, we're going to just be able to ask each other some questions, right? I'm trying to build really solid relationships with a small number of offices that we can serve over the next couple of years. So I wanted to ask, like, what are some of the things that you look for and like about your current clinics that you send patients to? And then pause, right? Let them answer, because I want to open them up a little bit, right? Hey, what do you like? And then what would you change, right? So it's just like, hey, what do you like? Let them respond. And then, okay, thank you for sharing. Like, what would you change, right? Don't ever ask like, what didn't you like? Because it kind of shuts them out. But what would you change? Then you can ask some follow-ups. Like, if you had a magic wand and could fix one thing about PT, what would it be? Where does PT usually create the most headaches for you and your team? What are your favorite type of patients to treat? You're just taking notes, right? This is the research. So once I do the pattern interrupt and I respect them and their time and what this is about, I then do some research, because I'm generally trying to understand what they like, what would they change, what kind of patients they want, how to refer to them. And then I want to build reciprocity. This has been incredibly helpful. And we have patients every week who need exactly what you do. And I only want to send them to offices that I trust. So I'd actually like to start by sending people to you, if that's okay, right? So can I grab some like cards or materials? And when we have a good fit, that patient who has insert whatever they said, right? I can put this info directly into their hands, or by chance you have a preferred way to get them in quicker, right? So right? Pretty cool, right? And if this makes sense later, I'm happy to share, right, how we're structuring our process to fix some of those frustrations and headaches that you mentioned, right? Now, what just happened here is you respected their time by calling ahead, right? You talked about their problems, not yours, right? How are we different? No. Like, what are you frustrated about? What would you change, right? And then you offer them business first. They're like, this guy is different, right? That's the opposite of the cookie cutter vendor that most people, right? So we're trying to decommoditize you to be able to show up a little bit different in these meetings and inside the marketplace. So now I want to make sure that our strategic listeners get some value out of this as well, because, if you do it once and you get results, that's awesome. But we want to be able to build something that compounds and turn it into a rhythm and turn it into more of a system. So what do we do, right? So what I would do is I would sit down and I would create a list, right? I would create a list of like maybe 10 to 25 practices in your area. Now, more specifically is I would do 10 to 25 doctors or 10 to 25 practices in your area that are seeing the patients that you want to see. So each week, what I would do is I would call, right? I don't know, maybe like 2 to 3, right? Maybe 2 to 3 and do some like short visits with them, right? So 2 to 3 to set like maybe because you don't have a ton of time, right? Because you're treating patients, right? So I would call 2 to 3 of them and I would try to set, right, a visit of some sort with them. Okay. So I got 10 to 25. I'm making a list. I'm going to call like 2 to 3. I'm going to set that visit, but then I'm going to run, right, the intro, right, the question and the reciprocity framework that we just talked about, right? So I'm going to introduce myself. We're going to ask some couple quick questions during the meeting, and then I want to be able to send you some patients, right? So that is what's going to happen during the visit, right? So you're going to call, you're going to set it up, you're going to explain who you are, right? Then when you actually go and do the visits, you're going to run them through that IQR, right? The intro, right? Do the pattern interrupt. Here's some questions because I'm doing some research, I'm doing some reconnaissance, and then I want to be able to do some reciprocity here, right? So then what's going to happen here, because feedback loops are super important, we're going to take that feedback, right? What did you like, right? What did you like? What would you change? And then we're going to take that back to our team and we are going to implement that information, right? Because you need to be able to implement and adjust your systems and be able to actually provide what they like. Well, we want to make sure that our patients get in 72 hours or less. Great. We want to make sure that they return for follow-up in 4 weeks. Awesome. We want to make sure that we get the eval, progress note, change of status and discharge. We could send you those, right? So you are going to take this feedback. What did you like? What would you change? And then provide it back to your team, right? And then obviously, right, we're actually going to be looking to send them some patients, right? Because we told them we will send them some folks. So we want to make sure that we are actually sending them some folks. So when you fix the problem, right, they told you about, and you circle back, right, last time you said scheduling was a headache, we changed our process, right? Referrals are now getting offered within 72 hours, right? Here's exactly how. You're going to start to move from like a vendor to an actual referral partner, because you want to understand that like when we are meeting with physicians, we are trying to get business from them, right? That's for your reasons. But if you show up and you're like, well, how could I send you patients and it's for their reasons? That's when you start to win this game and start to leverage reciprocity, because now you're showing up as a referral partner or a growth partner, someone who gives, not just takes all the time. Because in a field of takers, right, you are going to be able to stick out significantly more than all of these other clinics in your area. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. So if you're tired of being treated like a random rep with cookies, right, and you want to be treated like a partner, the clinics are genuinely excited to work with, then I'm hosting a live physician referral workshop, and it's going to be called How to Become Top of Mind with Physicians and Stay There. So in it, we are going to build out the actual short list of high value practices, script these reciprocity-based call and visit frameworks for you to market with, and then we're going to design a system inside our clinic that actually fixes all the problems that offices complain about, because we already know what they are, right? And then in turn, we are going to turn this into a weekly operating system that your team can run without you having to babysit. So if you're a PT practice owner and you want a physician referrals to be predictable instead of political, click the link in the description or the pinned comment. Okay, you're going to see the dates, you're going to see the breakdown, you're going to be able to grab your seat, right? Just know that physician referrals aren't dead, but acting like a random rep is, right? So we want to be able to call ahead, we want to be able to bring value, and we want to be able to send first, right? That's how we will build that reciprocity. So do that, and you become the clinic that they actually want to be able to work with. So click the link, and we'll see you on the workshop.